Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are zeroing in on one of the most fascinating phenomena in modern music history. We're going to explore exactly how, and more importantly, why Bob Dylan, an absolute legend of the craft, constantly reinvents his iconic musical catalog live on stage. I mean, if you've ever bought a ticket expecting to hear the exact radio version of a 1960s classic, well, you were probably in for a massive shock. Rhythms are flipped, genres are completely swapped, and melodies, they're often entirely rewritten. But as we're going to see today, that shock is entirely by design.
You know, years ago, Dylan actually read a review that claimed he sounded like a parody of himself, basically just imitating his past eras. And his response was characteristically blunt. He said, "I'd sure like to know who I'm supposed to sound like. I can't sound like anybody else." This perfectly captures his lifelong refusal to become a human jukebox. He is actively, stubbornly avoiding the trap of becoming a caricature of his own legacy, insisting instead on remaining an active, present-tense creator.
The electric catalyst. So let's dive right into where this instinct for rebellion really took root. To get it, we have to look at a core conflict: comfortable nostalgia versus fresh creation. I want to challenge you directly for a second. When you go to a live show, would you rather see a perfectly preserved museum piece or a living, breathing work of art? Dylan's entire approach to live performance demands that we answer this question. If you appreciate art that actually takes risks, his methodology matters deeply because it fundamentally redefines the whole relationship between the creator and the listener.
To map out how we got here, we've got to look at his performance evolution. Back in the early 1960s, he was the acoustic voice of the folk movement. But then, in 1966, he completely shattered expectations. He went electric. This all culminated in that infamous Judas moment at the Manchester Free Trade Hall, where he literally faced boos and insults from folk purists who felt totally betrayed. But he didn't just plug in an amplifier. He was radically uprooting the folk songs his fans thought they owned, twisting them into aggressive rock anthems. And he didn't back down. He just told his band to play louder. By 1975, with the Rolling Thunder Revue, he was playing smaller halls, wearing white face makeup and plastic masks, continuing to just shatter theatrical expectations. And all of this set the ultimate stage for 1988, the birth of what we now call the Never-Ending Tour.
Section 2. The Never-Ending Tour. Which brings us to the modern era, where this philosophy of relentless reinvention birthed a touring cycle unlike anything else in the history of music. Since kicking things off in June of 1988, Dylan and his rotating backing band have performed well over 3,000 shows across 6 continents. 3,000! That's an intentionally grueling, ongoing touring cycle. Averaging roughly 100 shows a year, this isn't just a traditional promotional tour to sell records. It's a way of life. More importantly, it serves as a continuous, nightly laboratory for dismantling and rebuilding his music in real time. And you know, even all these decades later, well into his 80s and supporting his 39th studio album, the dynamic remains exactly the same. The audience often buys a ticket expecting a comfortable nostalgia trip, but the reality? Complete reinvention. He actively changes up set lists and radically rebuilds his classic catalog night after night, flat out refusing to let the live experience go stale for himself or for his band.
Section 3. Rearranging the Classics.
So, how exactly does he pull this off? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. One of his absolute favorite methods is the total instrumentation swap. Take a song like High Water, which originally had this delicate part acoustic arrangement. Live, it's suddenly blown out into a full, stomping electric powerhouse. It completely shifts the song from a haunting folktale into an aggressive driving blues anthem. On the flip side, traditionally electric, up-tempo tracks like If You See Her Say Hello or I Want You will suddenly appear stripped down in a super quiet acoustic guise. The sonic foundation of the song is entirely uprooted, which forces us as listeners to hear the lyrics in a completely new, often way more vulnerable context. But honestly, it goes way deeper than just plugging in or unplugging a guitar. He often moves over to the piano to anchor the band, playing savage chords or a really quiet, syncopated style that completely changes the whole musical dynamic on stage. He alters tempos drastically. He will even rewrite lyrics entirely. For instance, he changes the words and slows down the tempo of When I Paint My Masterpiece, shifting the emotional center of gravity from a hopeful, romantic vision to a plaintive, deeply cynical tone. He also shifts genres effortlessly, taking a rapid-fire acoustic classic like It's Alright Ma and transforming it into a heavy, riff-based blues number. It's like the songs are treated as wet clay, always ready to be molded into a brand new shape. And it's not just the sound. Even the visual spectacle of the concert is meticulously curated to subvert normal rock star tropes. This is best exemplified by a ritual introduced this century known as the formation. At the end of a show, Dylan and his band stand completely at attention in a line, staring impassively at the audience. Surrounded by the smell of burning incense, with his face an unreadable mask, he refuses to give the expected effusive rock star bow. It is a powerful theatrical punctuation mark to a night of complete reinvention.
Section 4. Keeping the band guessing.
So we've seen what this means for the fans, but how on earth do musicians survive in this totally unpredictable environment? Well, a former bandmate once perfectly defined the job with a brilliant anecdote. They aren't just reciting sheet music up there, because Dylan goes off on wild, real-time tangents. Just knowing the chords simply isn't enough to survive on that stage. True musicianship in this band means active, relentless listening and reacting to his spontaneous musical pivots in the exact moment they happen.
The late great Tom Petty, who backed Dylan in the 1980s, totally validated this exact approach. He noted that Dylan has a spontaneity that feels much closer to traditional jazz than structured rock and roll. The key takeaway here, as Petty realized, is that if a song is truly durable and well-written at its core, it can withstand being approached from a dozen different angles without breaking. In fact, the song isn't broken by reinvention, its true strength is actually proven by it.
Section 5. The art of reinvention.
So we gotta ask, why this relentless need to constantly tear down and rebuild? U2's Bono once recalled this fantastic anecdote about trading lines and verses with Dylan. Dylan effortlessly came up with what Bono called an absolute classic lyric. It was perfect, but immediately after saying it out loud, Dylan just went, nah, cancel that. Why? Because it was too close to what was expected of him. This unpredictability, it isn't accidental or sloppy, it's a deliberate, conscious, and fiercely protected choice to avoid being boxed in by anyone's expectations, even his own. Which leaves us with one absolutely crucial question. What is the true value of an artist who flat out refuses to stay frozen in time? Bob Dylan shows us that true artistic integrity often means challenging your audience rather than simply appeasing them. It's about ensuring the art remains alive, breathing, and completely relevant right now, on this specific night, in this specific room. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly encourage you to seek out some of these live reinventions for yourself because trust me, you will never hear those classics the exact same way again.